What do you want me to do? I mean, what am I supposed to do? When I get a phone call from a person who has never been wrong, and they give me information that I simply can't accept. There's things that happen every day that are hard for me to believe. You want to know where I got that line? I was in court. I had to go to court 7 times against the state of Oregon. I was a promoter. The second longest lasting promoter in the country under documentation. First person to ever be licensed was named Dana White. Second person to ever be licensed named Chael Sonnen. State of Oregon takes me to court. A total of 7 times, by the way. I beat them. Also, they have an endless budget. They lost to Chael Sonnen 7 times. First time that I go in. And that's a tough spot for me. I'm a young kid. I'm just out of college. I'm 24 years old. I don't have a vast interest in government, but I also don't have a vast knowledge of government. When I get into the court, I find out that I've got a judge who collects a check from the exact same person who has brought me in here today. So at least in theory, the judge and the prosecutor would have a relationship. I would assume they're on the same team. They're on the same team, which is against the guy they brought in, which happens to be me. And nothing could have been further from the truth. The judge, before he became a judge, had operated in the private sector, and he knew in his own heart there's nothing that will stop business more than these guys over here wearing sports coats and ties. So one of the things that was said is that it largely came down to if we were having an amateur or a pro event. Per the law and per the statute that we were being tested upon, whether this was amateur or pro, was largely going to determine if we fell into the definition or we did not. And one of the athletes that was competing was Jeff Munson, and Jeff Munson had already fought for a UFC championship. He was a very well-known name. He also happened to be a very good friend of mine who was coming in to do Chael a favor, but he was not being paid. It was amateur. Much like the Olympics, where that distinction, how it gets very confusing. The dream team comes in, and they're pro players, but they're not paid for the Olympics, and so therefore it doesn't get, how that gets really weird? Well, it's the same thing. It was the same thing here, and I remember the prosecutor telling the judge, well, I find it very hard to believe that somebody of Jeff Munson's stature is going to fight for free. And the judge said, well, do you have any evidence that he's not? There's things I assume that would happen every day that you find hard to believe. And I just remember, like as a 24-year-old kid, I remember it boosted me up a little bit. And I'm in that same spot now. I receive a phone call from somebody who calls me all the time and has never been wrong. Seems to have an amazing ear to the grindstone. And he gives me information I find hard to believe. Now, if I come out and I put that information to you, and there's always some prick that will come out and he'll take 4, 5, 6 words that old Chael said, but he won't give it any context to the 500 or 600 words that I said before it, leading into it, or the 5 or 6 that I said coming on, the other way. So it starts to be very misleading, and I don't want to be a misleading guy. I am not a journalist, I am an entertainer, but I want to be right. I don't do clickbait. Anything you ever see in a thumbnail or a topic on one of my pages, that's exactly what I'm going to speak about. I never clickbait you guys. So what do I do when I'm given information that I don't believe, but I'm given it by a person who I'm forced to believe? And that's a spot that I'm in right now. And without further ado, I have been informed that Islam Makhachev will defend his championship against Justin Gaethje. Now, how do I accept that? How do I accept we're going to go to Gaethje when Max is now in the division? How do I accept that Max, who is in the division, is also a champion? He is currently wearing a belt. How would I accept that somebody that Max beat by finish, which I got to tell you in fairness should mean nothing. That's a new thing to our industry. Our industry just started going along with this finish thing. I remember where I was the first time that Dana White ever said finish, and everybody in the room got uncomfortable. They wouldn't even print it. Like the word finish just reminded you of a movie like Gladiator where and then somebody gets their head chopped off. It was this wildly uncomfortable, but now we are supposed to adhere to it. Now if two guys fight and it comes to a decision and somebody else fights one of those same guys, but it was a finish, we're supposed to look at that more valuably. Fine, I'm playing along. Max not only beat Justin, he beat him by finish. He not only beat him in championship rounds, he'd won every single minute of every single round. So in the presence and in existence of Max, who, by the way, is a reigning champion, how do we get to Justin? Well, very easy. There's lots of guys when you're fighting the absolute best guys, and today it's him, today it was that guy, and by the way, he's already tied up. And Khalil Roundtree, God bless him, total stud. But how did we get to Khalil Roundtree against Pereira? It was kind of easy. Rajik was signed to fight someone else. Uncle Aya was signed to fight someone else. Pereira had beaten the guys. Khalil Roundtree had been cleaning out the division quietly, largely on non-pay-per-view, and if you looked at his record, you realized he was the right guy. But you did have to get to where some guys were already busy, had contracts signed. So is that where we're at 155 pounds? Do we have a bunch of contracts signed that hasn't been revealed to us? I mean, Arman Sarukian is the surprising. And Arman Sarukian, wrestling coach, is Daryl Christian. And therefore, Sarukian will go through his MMA journey with the Uncle Chael veil of protection. And I will tell you, Sarukian has been oddly quiet. I don't know what to make of it. I believed he was being quiet because he was a sportsman. He, though it was against him, believed that missing weight was a sin that needs to be paid for. And he's willing to be quiet in the corner and go and pay for it. That was my interpretation. Ilia Topuria is a new addition. And Ilia Topuria, while being an undefeated, and that matters, you want to talk about finishing guys, excuse me, he has never lost to a guy, ever. World champion. He walks into the division. He's no longer world champion, but when he walked into the division, he was. Contrary to what you guys have been told, Ilia Topuria was the champion of the world until 1 week ago. You found out that he was in the division 5.5 weeks ago. And he is not the number one contender? How would that be possible? How could an undefeated, he has no contract, no business with anybody, world champion, and that's not good enough to fulfill a number one contender shot? Okay. Well, that answer was actually halfway understandable. And you may not like it, but it was understandable, which is Islam, who wants to leave the division himself, has already welcomed a 45-pounder not once but twice and got nothing for it. The 2 times he did it, if the 45-pounder would have beat him, would get this double champ business, would have got status, belts on bullshit, gets all these things. Islam beats him, he gets nothing except what he showed up with. Like, you could see where that would be annoying. It's part of the business. You get called, you go do the job for the company. But when you go do the job twice for the company, you do have the right to say, I'm not going to do it a third time. And that's the part that has slowed Ilia down. What do you want to do with Charles? Well, the problem with Charles, and there's only one, and it's small. It's a small problem. Charles already fought Islam. Which then brings you to Dustin Poirier, who is excluded because he's on a retirement fight, not to mention he's fighting Max. And it finally does get to where you understand Paddy is the next best thing, but he needs one more. Everybody's agreeing on that, including Paddy. And now you're left. You're left by process of with Justin Gaethje, the crowd's favorite fighter. Nobody is going to argue with any opportunity given to Justin Gaethje. You want to give him a main event? Fine. You want to give him a BMF? Go ahead. You want to make him an interim? Have at it. You want to give him a shot at the undisputed championship? With the heir apparent to Khabib's throne? Okay. It's Justin Gaethje. Nobody's going to argue. Ilya's not getting the shot. Charles has already had it. Sarukian himself feels that he has a penance to pay. All of that is accurate. If the source, who has never been wrong yet, to me, is right. Oh, International Fight Weekend.